Hello everyone, it's me, JayEmm, the waffling YouTuber, and I'm here for another one of my long rants. The topic of today's whinge, whine and grumble is the beloved Alfa Romeo. Now everybody knows that Jeremy Clarkson has said many times that in order to be a true petrol head, you have to have owned an Alfa Romeo. Well, I in some way, shape or form have owned three. I've just got this for my mother. I know a few people that have had others, and I've driven quite a few of them. And so I do feel somewhat qualified to talk about today's topic. I know there's a few of you that have told me I'm not so qualified on other topics like McLaren ownership, but when it comes to Alfa ownership, well, I feel like I've got the credentials. I may not be as dedicated or passionate as some of you watching, and if you think what I'm saying is wrong or you think there's exceptions to what I'm saying, please do chime in the comments below. Anyway, I'm sure you can all read and you'll have seen the topic of today's video, which is something along the lines, I haven't made it up yet, but it's going to be why Alfa Romeo are really never going to make it as a big brand. And much of what I'm about to say isn't actually unique to Alfa Romeo at all. In fact, you could apply a lot of it to Lotus. You could probably apply much of it to McLaren as well, but on a different scale. Now, this car, I had a very strict set of criteria for choosing this car, and I'm going to go over what those were in another video, because I am going to be reviewing this car and talking about it, and I do really like it. I wouldn't have picked it for Mum if I didn't. However, this car came from a well-known British independent Alfa Romeo specialist. I would say actually they specialise pretty much in Giuliettas. I think they've got more Giuliettas for sale than anywhere else that I've seen, Alfa Romeo dealers included. And when I came to pick this car up, it had a knocking noise in it. It had a knocking noise when I test drove it, which was said to be probably a loose jack or something in the back. And I thought, yeah, that's probably what it is, and I'm sure they'll get that sorted. Well, I picked the car up, drove it. No. Knocking away. Just every time you went over any sort of lump or bump, just knock. Very annoying. So I said this to them, and to be fair to them, they said, don't worry, bring it in. We'll sort it for you straight away. So I booked in, went down, and it's a half day of my time, 130 odd miles of traveling to get there and back. I went there, went out in the car with them. They said, oh, that'll be a drop link. I'm kind of annoyed because I'm like, well, you kind of went over the car, didn't you, before you sold it? That's why we went to a specialist, why we didn't buy privately. But you're going to sort it. The car also, when you braked from about 70, was wobbling as well, which I thought was probably the discs, because there was a bit of a lip on the front discs. So anyway, discs and pads replaced, no cost, that's fine. Drop link was sorted, great. They went out, tested it, said, yep, we've sorted the knocking noise. We've replaced one of the drop links. I mean, I stood there for a minute and I kind of thought, shouldn't you replace two drop links? I mean, look, I'm not particularly mechanically minded. Any of you that watch the channel will know that. I'm not going to get under the car in the dead of winter. I don't have Lockwood levels of dedication like that, but I do know a few things. One of the few things that I do know is that when it comes to suspension kind of stuff and tyres and all that stuff, you generally do things in pairs. But I thought, maybe the previous owner had already replaced the other one, so actually this one was fresh and that one was knackered. I don't know. So I get in the car and I drive it, and it takes about 30 yards to realise the fact that actually it's still knocking and lumping and banging. Not quite as bad as before, but it's still doing it. So I take the car straight back, tell them what's happening. They said, oh, well, okay, well, we'll take it out. And they go back out and they go, oh yeah, actually it's the other drop link is knocking as well. Right, okay. I mean, they had just tested it and handed it back to me and looked me in the eyes and said, we have fixed your car, Mr. Martin. But they hadn't at all, and it was blindingly obvious that they hadn't. And as a friend of mine, Steve, used to have the XC350, now has the Alfa 4C. Well, that had a problem where apparently Alfa had put the wrong VIN plate on the car. But rather than let him just send them a photo to see whether he had or hadn't got the wrong VIN plate, they actually wanted him to take the car back to his supplying dealer, which was something like 200 miles away from where he lived, rather than the Alfa dealer that was about 5 miles away from where he lived. And they didn't seem to understand why that would be an inconvenience. You can then add to that the number of people, and I would say, okay, it's not many people, it's not a lot of people, like 3 or 4 people I've had come back to me and they've said, James, I thought about buying a Giulia quadrifoglio. They've always been quadrifolios, and I watched your reviews amongst others. I'm not the Alfa specialist. I'm not the FCA specialist. If you want to know loads and loads of stuff about Fiat, Chrysler, Abarth stuff, go see my mate Steph. He's great about this stuff. But all three people have come back to me and said, look, I tried to organise a test drive with my local dealer, and they were just so difficult, such a pain in the arse with regards to either returning calls or just having a car available for test or just other things, that I gave up. Now, here's the thing. There's loads of car dealers in the world that are a bit useless. Most of them have the decency to be a bit useless after you've bought the car. I know loads and loads of car dealers, and I've been subject to them myself, where the buying process is wonderful. The buying process is great. You know, that they're the most helpful, useful people in the world while they think you're going to spend money with them. And then the moment you have spent money with them, they turn into a chocolate teapot and they really couldn't care less because they've already had your hard-earned cash off you. Well, Alfa dealers, it seems, they just skip over that whole step of actually getting you to become a customer, and they're just a pain in the arse to you from the word go. And there aren't many Alfa dealers in this country. If you are looking at buying something like a BMW or, you know, a Ford, you've probably got about 4 or 5 dealers within what you may consider to be easy distance. And here's the thing, right? Alfa, it's definitely a brand for passionate people. You know, I don't think many people just go and buy an Alfa just because they want a car. People probably go and buy something like that Vauxhall over there on my neighbour's driveway because they just want something. You know, I just want a car. You know, and they don't really care. People that buy an Alfa, you know, they want something different. I'm sure there's plenty of people out there, maybe, you know, Mito kind of customers, you know, Giulietta diesel customers that you know, they just want something and they're kind of going, oh, that hatchback looks kind of pretty and kind of nice. And this is a flawed car. There's definitely problems with this car. It's not perfect at all, but there's a lot about it that I really quite like. But I guarantee you, every single person that's gone to buy an Alfa Romeo that spoke to their friends about it has probably had their friends try and talk them out of it. I mean, even just today, I was talking with my mechanic, my Alfa specialist, my Alfa-loving Italian mechanic. And when I mentioned a 159 to him as a potential daily, he said, look, I like you, but I don't want to see you that often. He's not prepared to commit to that kind of relationship of me having a 159. And that's tragic, really, isn't it? You know, when you got someone like him, he's really passionate about the brand. He loves Alfas. He lives and breathes Italian stuff. You know, it's what he loves. And look, here's the thing. All car companies can and will have issues. And they can have big issues as well. You know, I've known people with Mercedes AMGs that have been like 100 grand cars that they've had to reject, that they've had serial problems with, and big problems, not just little weird, oh, it rattles a bit. I mean, like the gearbox has fallen out kind of levels of issues. You know, Ford can have problems, BMW can have problems, Jag can have problems, Ferrari can have problems. That all car manufacturers can have problems. And people talk about Alfa Romeo as being problematic, you know, as having issues, you know, the same way they talk about Fiat. And look, whether they do or don't have more problems is actually academic, very much like I spoke about in my McLaren video. The fact that they have problems isn't the important thing. What is important is how you deal with these problems. My buddy Steve's 4C, the caliper seized on it. I was sat in his driveway for a month because he didn't want to drive it while there was salt on the roads. And so he didn't drive it. The caliper seized, and the dealer now want to charge him nearly £200 for a car that's in warranty. And it's a 4C as well. This is a halo car. This is an awesome piece of kit. I mean, why? Why would you do that? Why would you be such a pain in the arse? What you should be doing is saying, oh, we're so sorry, sir. We can't believe this has happened here. Why don't we send you out a Giulia while we get this done for you? You know, and to be honest, I know Steve. He's the sort of bloke that, you know, if this problem had happened, and look, he's not using the 4C every day. I mean, actually, it's quite nice and sunny today, but it hasn't been for a lot recently. And if they said to him, look, we're very sorry, sir, we'll have to come and collect the car because it's not drivable. Why don't we leave you with a Giulia for a bit? Not even a quad, like a Giulia Veloce, it's a lovely car. Or a Stelvio even. You know, he lives in the sticks. You know, Stelvio would be great for him and his missus. And, you know, we'll leave you with that car for a bit while we sort your 4C out. Yeah, he'd probably drive it, he'd probably like it, and he'd probably go, hey, you know what? That's quite a good car, this Stelvio or Giulia or whatever. I think maybe I'll buy one of these, because he's the kind of guy that will do that. But no, instead they want to fight tooth and nail and wiggle their way out of doing what should be Basically, I mean, the problem shouldn't have happened in the first place, but the problem isn't the problem. The problem with how an issue is dealt with. I've had an issue recently with a very small company. They damaged an item of mine in transit, but, the first day, the minute it happened, they were on the phone. Very sorry, Mr. Martin. This has happened. Okay, no problem. We got a quote for how much it was to fix the damage. They paid instantly. Great, cool. I'm going to carry on using you because now I know if there's a problem, you're going to be honest, you're going to be decent, and you are going to deal with it. And that's key. But Alfa just don't care. And the fact of the matter is that I have had enough stories from enough people in enough different places to know that this is far from an isolated case. These kind of attitudes in large companies come from the top down. This is why I really quite like Lexus. I've never bought a Lexus in my life. I hope one day that maybe I'll have enough money to have an LC500 for a bit of fun, because my very limited exposure to a Lexus dealership was an incredibly positive one, and it sticks out in my mind as a sort of solitary example of a car dealer actually treating me like a human being. Look, I'm not Shmi, I'm not internationally famous YouTuber, I'm a small little guy, that most people have never even heard of. So when I walk into a car dealership, it's not like, oh, it's him, I'm just a guy walking into a dealer, right? And so if I walk into a dealership and I'm treated with respect and courtesy and like I have the ability to buy any of the cars in the showroom, so you should be. The truth is that actually, if you're a car dealer and someone walks into a showroom and you probably think that they don't have the means to buy your car, I mean, maybe they don't today, but they might next week, or they might next year, As Porsche did a great little advert with a little kid, and he comes into a dealership and he's like, can I look at a 911 please? And then he's like, right, I'll see you in 20 years, give me your business card. And that's because that's kind of how this stuff works, My granddad had an Alfa Romeo Giulietta or something, whatever it was. It's an Alfetta. He had an Alfetta, which my dad was 17 and driving around, and he loved it. But buying an Alfa Romeo has just been, it's nothing to do with the cars, and this is the problem. I think a lot of people look at it and go, yeah, but it's a great car. Like, what's the problem with it? It's a really good car. And it's like, I'm sorry, but there's something that and I'm pretty sure that most of you guys watching this, you're probably going to be Petras. And I do say guys because unfortunately 99% of you are male. But we're all Petras. We love our cars. We're big into this stuff. You guys, you'll know what a limited slip differential is. You know what Haldex is. You know what Torsen is. You know all this stuff. But most people don't. Most people really, really don't care. Most people just want an easy time of car ownership. And the moment somebody walks through an Alfa Romeo dealer's doors, they've already kind of done the hardest work because they've ignored their friends. They've gone, I'm not going to listen to all that, that whiffle waffle about dealer trouble and cars breaking down and reliability woes and all this stuff. I'm going to go and look at an Alfa Romeo. I want to be an Alfa Romeo owner. And maybe a dealer will get lucky and maybe they'll make them an Alfa Romeo dealer that day. But if they want to hold on to them and make them lifetime customers, from what I'm seeing, they're going to have to work a lot harder. And that's a shame. But, you ask anyone that's got a Porsche, and pretty much the reason that they buy Porsches, or Porsches, whatever you want to call it, doesn't actually often have to do with how good the Porsche might be. Generally, it's because they decided they tried everybody else and nobody else delivered the experience that they wanted. An Alfa Romeo, if nothing else, should be a really pleasant ownership experience. But it isn't there quite yet. I, for one, hope that this changes. Clearly the model lineup is improving. I think they got the best model lineup they've ever had, or certainly, for as long as I've been alive. But if they want to make a success of it, guys, customer service, it means a lot. Us petrolheads might look at Nürburgring times, but waiting times when you're on the phone is actually more important to most people. There you go. That's today's rant, done and dusted. Hope you've enjoyed it. Have you had an Alfa Romeo before? Please, I'd love to know whether your experience was the same as mine and that of my friends, or whether you actually had a good time. And if you did, please do tell us in the comments who your dealer was. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.